Powerful Cyclone Chido passing Madagascar. Well, we saw a very powerful storm reach almost Category 5 status the other day. Now it is still a strong Category 3 storm as it passes very close to the northern tip of Madagascar today. It's 11.6 degrees south, 48.5 degrees east, moving west-southwesterly at around 26 kilometers per hour or 16 miles per hour. Here's the latest as of 6 p.m. Eastern African Time this December 13th. It still has winds of at least 115 miles per hour and a pressure estimate of 948 millibars, looking pretty good on satellite imagery, and still can't be ruled out that there may be another re-intensification phase as it moves through the Comoros Islands over the next 24 to 36 hours. Here it is right now with some substantial wind fields there out to 120 nautical miles on its southern quadrants. The northern side not as strong, or at least as widespread winds up there. It is currently 93 kilometers from Andorranco on the northern tip of Madagascar, 130 from the Glorioso Islands, those small ones that you can see just to the west of the storm, tracking over it very soon, 371 from Mayotte, 570 from Mayotte and the Comoros, and 881 from Pemba in northern Mozambique. All of these places will probably receive storm force winds or worse as the storm arrives over the next 48 hours. So the main hazard then is damaging winds, with major wind impacts expected along all of those islands that I mentioned, with winds of up to 100 miles per hour or possibly more. Similar wind impacts expected when the storm makes its final landfall in northern Mozambique, could be quite close to Pemba as we outlined there, with a substantial storm surge potential as well, of course. Given the storm as strong as this, it's not the largest in the world, but it certainly could pack a substantial storm surge with it, possibly up and above 10 feet. Well, here is the forecast then. It's pretty straightforward now over the next couple of days. Landfall on Saturday, maybe mid to late in the day, somewhere near Pemba by the looks of things, and then dissipating quite quickly after it moves inland over the interior of Mozambique and then on to Malawi and possibly into Zimbabwe. So the storm is currently very powerful all the way up until landfall, quite possible there to get some very strong winds. Well, here is the estimates right now from the various agencies. The JTWC slightly higher at 120 miles per hour, and Meteo France still coming down from Category 4 status actually right now, although I expect they will revise their estimates down later. Although the storm has been fighting back quite often, and maybe there could be another slight intensification phase before landfall. Whether it actually drops intensity before that is another matter. The JTWC are holding pretty steady with their forecast as well. This is what it looks like. They are calling for 100 knots, which is its current intensity, 115 miles per hour, all the way up until landfall, including that very close pass in Mayotte, and possible landfall there as well, and then passing very close to Pemba. Well, this is our unofficial warning map from Force 13 showing where we expect hurricane equivalent conditions and tropical storm conditions there in the red and orange respectively. And this is the tropical storm wind speed probabilities, also one of our graphics displayed on our automated tracker right now as well, which you can check out at any time. And we're expecting large probabilities for substantial winds there. Well, here's a GFS forecast model showing the expectations over that time period, and you can see there it actually holds on to storm force winds quite far inland, which is very interesting to see. It's probably not as mountainous, that area where the storm is moving inland, compared to a little bit further south, so it may hold on to its winds a little bit better, especially on the southern side, which will be the strongest all the way through here. It will be south of the center that will have the maximum winds when the storm makes its landfalls, so if it passes just north of Mayotte, then that could be a problem. That's what the JTWC forecast was depicting. Looking at the rainfall reflectivity simulation here, it actually looks like it might be the northern side that has the worst rainfall when it moves through the islands, but by the time it reaches Mozambique, that will start to concentrate a little bit more on the southern side. Either way, it's going to be very high rainfall amounts for those areas very close to the center, but overall it's probably not going to be a particularly wet storm for two reasons. One, it's a relatively small size, but two, and probably more importantly, it's relatively fast movement, currently moving at 16 miles per hour and could end up going a little bit faster by the time it reaches landfall. You see its remnants continuing through Mozambique, almost arcing all the way around actually in those later days of that forecast. So here's the rainfall expectations. Now, don't get me wrong, it will still be substantial amounts of rainfall, could reach possibly up to 10 inches in some locations, 250 millimeters. You can see near the landfall zone in Mozambique, we are expecting that amount, and possibly 12 inches near where it currently is right now, although that is out at sea. Again, 10 inches possible near Mayotte, and getting up towards 3 or 4 inches for the rest of the Comoros Islands. Obviously, the further south and east, the more likely you are to get higher rainfall. Also in the interior of Mozambique, all along the coast there, down to Beira and further, 4 inches, maybe 5 inches, even getting down towards Maputo possibly, getting some substantial rainfall amounts, although that may be welcome looking at this temperature chart because they are getting some really high temperatures inland right now, up to around 45 degrees Celsius in some locations of the interior. However, sea surface temperatures, they're also looking good though. These are probably going to be reading a little bit low for those sea surface temperatures. It's going to be at least 29 degrees, probably higher once it moves further into the Gulf there, the Mozambique Channel, and then by the time it reaches landfall, those temperatures still looking good all the way up until that moment. So let's take a look at the satellite imagery over the course of today. We saw that visible imagery earlier, but here it is looking very good. The eye shape decent, although it has been battling quite a bit there. It's probably not a completely closed eye anymore. It has had one or two eyeball replacement cycles. It did look much better earlier in the day today, and it's not just because the daylight is fading. The southern side is looking a little bit more disheveled on this imagery. You'll see it more on the infrared. Here it is. The eye has become more shallow. Particularly the eastern and southeastern side, there appears to be a break, a disconnect there, which means that the storm has taken in a little bit of weakening. Here's some imagery from the Force 13 website, and you can take a look at those floaters live on there as well, force13.com/satellite. General movement there, west-southwesterly, pretty steady with that movement as well, hardly erratic. It could have been much worse for Madagascar there. It could have been a direct landfall. It was close, didn't quite happen. Some of the strong winds there just about reaching the northern tip of Madagascar, though it is relatively sparsely populated. Continuous motion in that direction would take the storm very close to the island of Mayotte. It's hard to tell whether it will actually make landfall there or not, but we do expect it will probably curve just slightly a little bit further towards the west as we look at this imagery here showing that southeastern side really not looking quite as good there. Hopefully that trend actually continues. And finally, some rainfall rates estimates from satellite here as well, really showing a ferocious core actually in those latest frames.